Brother Gipp, you ready to go?
No,
All right.
but I'll do it.
Okay.
Amen. Amen. Well, good to be saved. Good to be in church. I'm stopping right there. I'm stopping right there. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. We had a good 2 months. We cut it short. Cut it short because our 50th anniversary is coming up, and we're just going to party for the whole month of August. But it's good to be back. I'm going to ask you. My students would understand if I was actually going to have you turn to John chapter 11, verse 35. That's Jesus wept. I tell people that's the greatest sermon text in the Bible, because you can preach anything from John 11:35. Jesus wept because you didn't win enough souls. Preach a whole hour on that. Next week, Jesus wept because you didn't show up on Wednesday night service, and preach a whole hour on that. And Jesus wept because you didn't give enough, and preach an hour on that, maybe 3 hours on that. And I mean, you'll have Jesus with, what is that, PSTD? He'll be crying about everything pretty soon. But actually, the text for my message, I'm not going to give to you until the end of the message, because I haven't figured it out myself yet. But I penned this down as Pastor was preaching this morning. I hope it didn't take any offense, because I also wrote all of his notes down. I got all 14 points down. But preachers, what you find out when you're a preacher, if you're listening to preaching, you get messages. Not related to the one that is being given. So I threw this together this morning and put it on paper before I did my Elvis invitation today. I did Elvis this afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So go to Daniel chapter 12. Go to Daniel chapter 12, and we'll find a passage here to jump off on. And then, like I said, I'll give you the 75 points of the message, and then I'll give you the text, which probably will be Jesus wept, or at least everybody else did, if I go that long. And look at verse 3. And he says this, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Let's bow our heads. Let's talk to the Lord. Father, it is good to be saved, and it is good to be in church. And thank you, God, for your goodness to us, God. Thank you that we get fed. We come here. It's good feeding this morning. We're asking now, Father, to be with all of the church camps that are still out. Be with the preaching and the counseling and all that goes on, that you will accomplish something, Father, that would ultimately lead to your glory. Bless this time, Father. These folks need to hear something from you. And if they don't, it's going to be my fault. So please, God, get Sam Gipp out of their way, out of your way. Speak to the heart of each individual here, God, and accomplish your purpose in each life represented. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. That last part of that verse, it says, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. And everybody likes to be a star. Everybody likes to think, that they're like the number one person. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about what anybody in here can do for the Lord. Because if you have a desire, there are people that have a desire to do something for God, but they may not be quite equipped, if you know what I mean. And so I'm just going to talk to you about some things and about some things that people are good at. And then I'll talk to you about two things, not one, two, that anybody here can do. If you can't do anything else that I talk about tonight, the two things I talk to you about at the end, which is my text, everybody here can do. And that's what I like. I like equal access, okay, where everybody can get on board. And so I'm going to talk to you about some things that people are good at. One thing that people are good at, and you see it in our church, I see it in church when we go in, music. Now, I am not good at music, okay? I used to be able to sing. They messed up the vocal cords. I don't do so well, but I don't understand music. Kathy and I would get up to sing, and she'd hit a note, and I'd hit the note. And 1 second later, I'd start the song on a different note. And then I didn't even know I did it. I can't tell that. But I always like when somebody has got some musical ability. You heard of a one-man band? I don't know if you noticed that we had a one-woman orchestra tonight. Katie Hatley was our one-woman orchestra. I was waiting for her to get out like a drum that she's going to hit with her foot and a violin, play something else. But when I hear people that can play an instrument, I am so impressed. And I can't play an instrument. I can't do it. The piano, it's like your one hand is doing one thing and the other hand is doing the other thing, and never the twain shall meet. But I can't, if I'm not looking at my fingers, I don't trust them. I have to look at my keyboard when I use my computer. But I see people that are good with instruments. And maybe I'm talking to somebody tonight, and that's how you are. You look at somebody playing an instrument and go, oh, yeah, I wish I could do that. Man, I wish I could play the piano. I wish I could play the trumpet. I've heard people play trumpet. And you go, well, yeah, that's not for me. I mean, think about this. When this thing is over, wouldn't it be nice to look back and say, I played an instrument for the Lord? I think that, it's something I couldn't do. And I think that would be nice. Or I sang for the Lord. Now there are people that can sing and there are people that are singers, if you know the difference. And it used to be I could sing. I'm not a singer. But boy, you get a hold of somebody that can sing. They're a singer. And it is beautiful, is it not? Don't you like to hear somebody sing? Got these brothers, these three brothers. They're fundamentalists. Their name is Tharp. And one pastor's in Michigan, one pastor's in Missouri, I think one pastor's in North Carolina, and they would be at these meetings I'd be at. And these three guys would get up and sing, and their voices would blend. And man, if you weren't blessed, you need to check your salvation. You know what I'm saying? And I'd listen to that and I go, yeah, I wish I could sing. Wouldn't it be nice to be a blessing when you sing? I have a good friend. He's with the Lord now. His name's, I don't know if he ever came by here, Bill Eubanks. And he had a mission ministry on the street. And I made the mistake of standing or sitting in front of him at a conference we were at. That's kind of like purgatory, okay? It's not hell, but you think you're never getting away from it. And I told him, I said, Bill, not so loud, we can still hear you. And I told him one time, I said, Bill, would you like to be a hero? He goes, yeah, Sam, I'd like to be a hero. I said, here's what you do. I said, if you ever see a building on fire, don't run in and yell fire. Run in and start to sing. I said, you will save the life of every person in the building. There'll be, the TVs will come and interview somebody that escaped and go, so how did you get out of the burning building? They go, oh, it was on fire. We didn't know it was on fire. We were trying to get away from that ungodly sound we heard. And there are some people, they should just be arrested for attempted music. And I think of musicians, I think, wow, to be able to do something like that for the Lord, wouldn't it be nice? It would be nice. Preaching, I wish I could preach. But when I think about preaching, I want to go back to singing. Actually, when I start singing, they yell preach. When I start preaching, they'll yell leave. But, to sing or to preach for the Lord, and I explained it this way, I can understand my salvation. People say, well, why would God ever save me? Well, he saved you because he would save anybody. I understand my salvation, not like God said, hey, I need that guy in heaven. We're lacking here. If he gets up here, the property values will go up, so Jesus, go die for him. That's not it. We add nothing to heaven when we get there. Is that not true? And so, I understand my salvation based on the whosoever clause. He said, whosoever shall call upon him, the Lord shall be saved. And the Greek word for whosoever is Gipp. And I got saved. And really, guys, the day I was getting saved, I might have been at that altar. I'm on my knees praying, asking the Lord to save me. And God up in heaven has gone, oh, Gipp, I don't even want you up here. But I said whosoever, and you found out, so now you're in. So, guys, really, we got in on the whosoever clause, correct? But why would God call you to preach? The only thing I can figure is he was really mad at all you guys when he called me to preach. But sometimes you hear preachers. I've heard some guys, again, I've heard some guys ought to be attempted for or arrested for attempted preaching. But I don't know if you ever heard, you've heard Rick Sowell. I think Rick Sowell is what I call a natural. And a natural is somebody that you could wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, you're preaching in a half an hour. And he would deliver something. And then I've heard other guys that, man, they got up and it was like you wanted to get the shepherd's hook and drag them off and say park cars for God or do something else. But some of you know, look, if you're not called to preach, you can't do it. That's just what it is. It is a calling. And it's okay, yeah, so now Gipp, I can't sing and I can't preach. Well, I'm not done with you. I'll make you feel totally worthless before it's over. Teaching. You is not a great teacher who knows a lot. There are a lot of people who know a lot. It is a great teacher who can know a lot and put it across. Again, I had, it was one of my students from a college I taught in back in the 70s, and I was preaching in his church. And he wrote something, and he said, I wrote something about prayer. He said, I wrote something. He said, I want you to read it. Now, that's okay. And then he said, and tell me what you think. Now, that's not always okay, all right? And so we were having supper, so he gave me this thing, and he wrote on prayer. And here's what he likened prayer to. He likened prayer to working out, like running, jogging, or lifting weights. And he said, you don't just go cold turkey and try to curl 250 pounds. I mean, you warm your muscles up or you'll hurt yourself. And you don't just get up and if you're not jogging, you don't get up and say, I think I'll run 20 miles. Or you'll run to the hospital or you'll pull a hamstring or a tendon or whatever, blow a lung. And so he had all of these exercises that you had to do to get ready to pray. So then we had breakfast the next day. And he said, what did you think? And I said, until I read this, I thought I knew how to pray. Now, guys, let me ask you a question. Are there not some things in the Christian life that are indeed difficult for us to do? I said, what's easier in the Christian life than speaking to your Father? I said, you know what you did? You took the simplest thing in the Christian life, talking to your dad. I said, you took the simplest thing and made it difficult. I said, he is no friend of anybody who takes the simple and makes it difficult. I said, that's what we have government for. I said, if you want to be somebody's friend, take the difficult and make it simple. I read stuff on Greek manuscripts and written by 100-year-old British authors who I am so glad they're dead or I would hunt them down myself. And you read this, and when you read something and they can convey it, that it's deep, that it's tough, that this guy took a lot of stuff and put it all together and put it across where you can say, I got something. Maybe I get 100%. Sometimes I'm reading this stuff and I am hanging on to it with my fingernails. I'm reading some book, trying to get something from it. But when somebody can take something that is difficult and present it in a simple way, I don't know what it was. I'm not sure that it wasn't a conspiracy back when I was a kid that all English teachers conspired to make English the hardest language to learn. Because it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. It's language that's catching fire all around the world. But somehow they had a way of making it difficult. And if you can teach somebody, my wife's dad died some years ago, and she has, there were 8 kids in the family. And we had been gone from the area for quite a few years, and several of the family members are gone. And so my father-in-law is laying here in front of the church, and her brothers and sisters were all standing over here in the family. And somebody would come into the nursing, or into it was a church, it was in church. And somebody, when the family would say, now, who's that? And when the other family said, well, that's somebody from the church we used to go to 25 years ago. Remember, they played, oh, yeah. And so somebody would walk in, and one family member didn't recognize him, and another one would say, well, that's so-and-so. Oh, yeah, I remember that. And this one guy walked in, and I mean, this guy was in a suit. He looked like, you ever see guys when they wear a suit, you can tell they don't wear a suit? I mean, they just don't look natural in a suit, It's just like, if they get a suit, they need to roll around in mud to look more comfortable. This guy belonged in a suit. I mean, he just looked like Mr. Businessman. And he was in businessman. And when he came in the door, one of the family members says, who's that guy? And somebody else said, I don't know. I mean, my father-in-law was a farmer, you understand? And he wasn't the kind of guy that knew businessmen of this caliber. And the whole family is absolutely stumped. Nobody recognized this guy. And the guy walks down, and he stands there and looks at my father-in-law in the coffin for a few seconds, and he turns to walk away. And before he walks out, he notices here, and he walks over. He sees the family. He goes, now, you're Don's family, right? And they said, yeah. And the guy teared up. And he said, when I was 8 years old, your dad was my Sunday school teacher, and he led me to Christ. Oh, my goodness. Guys, if you could do that, why would you get excited about a home run? Why would you get excited about anything when you, guys, you know what I always say? It's great to be saved, but you know what's going to be nice? Get to heaven. Don't you want at least one person there that'll walk up and hug your neck and say, thanks for leading me to Christ? And so being a great teacher, that would be good. Just being smart. It would be nice some folks are smart. I can't believe they give driver's licenses to everybody that doesn't know what green and red are. I'm pretty sure they have narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is where you fall asleep like that. You can even fall asleep at a red light, and I think a bunch of people do that, okay? You know you were in trouble when you're in 3 lanes of traffic and the light turns green and they all 3 sit there. And I think they're looking for a consensus like, well, I know it's green, but you know, they're not moving and they're not moving. I don't want to be the first one. And you know, I'm in back of them just putting it in low 4-wheel drive and we'll just push them on through. But wouldn't it be nice to be smart? Back in 2016, we were buying we just bought our 4th motorhome. So we had to move everything from the 3rd one to the 4th one, the new one. And we were up in Michigan. And so this one church sent some people down to help us. I'll never forget this guy's 31 years old. His name was Rusty. And when Rusty was 11 years old, he had brain cancer. And they literally took about half of his brain out. And he still didn't vote Democrat. You got to have way more removed to vote Democrat. And Rusty was not smart. And, you know, we're all carrying boxes. Of course, Kathy's got to put it away somewhere tentatively in the trailer. Nothing goes where it was because nothing's ever the same. But we're carrying boxes in. And every time Rusty would carry something in, he would put it down. She'd show him where to put it down. He'd go, am I doing all right? Am I doing it right? Because I'm not very smart. I carry a box. Oh, by the way, Rusty, with almost half of his brain gone, at that time he was 31 years old, had already read his King James Bible 11 times, cover to cover. He could manage that. Ooh, aren't you feeling bad right now if you didn't beat a guy with half a brain? I mean, really. So, but to see people that are smart. Oh, math. I worked retail one time, and you know, in retail, you're going to do some rudimentary math in your head, like the guy when he's holding the gun. Money in the cash register 30 seconds from now will not be in the cash register. But I had a guy there. He worked with me, and the guy was very sharp. And we had to do some little math thing. And you could see he kept getting a false start. He put this equation in his mind, and he'd go, and he could never get it. And he was saved. But he couldn't get, it was a rudimentary equation. That's why he was doing it, not me. I couldn't figure it. And he looked over and he goes, should have saw me before I was on drugs. He said I could do math like that, like nothing. Now he couldn't do it. He couldn't put the figures together and come up with it. Guys, literally, you ever people say that's Greek to me? I could handle if it was Greek. You start talking money, you start talking figures, I go into a trance. I can't, the only numbers I'm involved with is the book. Because other than that, when people start talking about finances and, well, you know, if you just put your money here and do this, and I'm just going, let me go write something. You know, I'm not doing this. But boy, to be smart. You say, well, you know what? I can't sing and I can't preach and I can't teach. I'm not very smart, which is what I kind of thought too. What about being athletic? Now, I have never gone down in history as a great athlete, but I will confess, I played Little League ball. I played second base without a glove. Bet you know nobody else did that. Oh, yeah. They picked up the sides, and they said, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to play second base. And I said, well, I don't have a glove. He said, no problem, you don't need one. And he walked me out to where second base should be, and he said, lay down right here. And I hate spikes to this day, actually. You never heard anybody scream, don't slide, don't slide. But you know, there are people that are athletic, and there are people that are good at things. LeBron James, you know, the brainless wonder, and he was shooting off a bunch of liberal stuff about a year ago, and somebody said, should you be commenting on political matters? Because he's on the left and the liberal and all this other stuff. And he says this, he goes, I'm a prominent person, And people want to know what I think. That was on the internet. He put it, and somebody wrote back and said, "You throw a ball through a hoop, so does a trained seal." Well, I'd bring you down, which I personally, it really kind of, I had an idea then. Why don't we replace the NBA with trained seals? Pay them with fish, no unions, no strikes, no problem of, immorality finding anybody. I mean, really, wouldn't the whole thing be an improvement? Just trained seals. You did good. See, they're happy. But do you ever just watch somebody that's good, is a good athlete? Somebody that's good at they hit the ball. Now, I do think about this. I understand baseball. Tell me if this isn't true. If a guy's batting 300, that's good. That's really a good average, right? Doesn't that mean that out of 1,000 times to the plate, he hit the ball 300 of them? Yeah. Would you let a guy do brain surgery on you with that kind of a record? How many times did this? Oh, man, I've done this 1,000 times. Oh, good. How many have made it through? 300. That isn't really exciting to me, okay? You have your neck operated on, your heart operated on, your head operated on, and some guy has only done it 300 times right out of 1,000. I'd say, where are you at now? I've done 300 right, and I've done it 999 times. You're number 1,000. No, I'm not. But there are people that are just good athletes. So you sit here tonight and you go, well, Gipp, I'm not musical. I can't preach. Not called. I don't want to teach. I don't teach. I don't think I'm that outstandingly smart. I'm not athletic. How about being righteous? You say, oh, nobody's righteous. Well, God looked down in Genesis chapter 7, and he looked at Noah, and he said he was righteous in all his generations. I mean, you know what that is? You know what a righteous man is? That's the guy you got to make up stuff when you want to badmouth him. And I'm sure they found a way. Isn't that what they did with Jesus Christ? They had to make something up. But wouldn't it be something to just be righteous? I don't mean feel righteous, because everybody feels righteous. You ever notice how self-righteous people are now? Everybody is righteous about everything. I think we could have somebody who is a serial killer, but as long as they recycle their aluminum cans, they'll think they're okay. And people are righteous about everything. People are righteous about what they eat. I have a thing. I eat only health food. I do. I figure it's all health food because it keeps me from starving to death. I was preaching someplace one time, and I got half of a sentence out, and some very zealous guy out in the sanctuary, out in the congregation, he thought I was going his direction. But I was preaching, and I said, I don't think, and I really believe this, I don't think anybody should eat meat. Well, I got that far, and this guy has probably been trying to convert his whole church to tofu and styrofoam or whatever they eat. And so when I got that far, he went, with venom dripping. Amen. Like, tell them, preacher, I've been trying to get it across to him. So I just finished my sentence. I said, I don't think anybody ought to eat meat. That leaves more for me. Needless to say, he did not ask me to sign his Bible after church. And I know people that say this. Now, you know what happens? You don't live for God at all. So you go, well, my body's the temple of the Lord, and so I take care of the body. So I'm serving God by taking care of his body. I don't eat anything with preservatives in it. I love preservatives. I eat everything with preservatives. You know why? I love preservatives. I have not told anybody this. This is the revelation. You guys are first to hear it. I died 5 years ago. It's the preservatives that are keeping this shell operating, okay? So just grab me something with some whatever it is. I don't know, a glass of gasoline or something. I mean, and people say, well, I don't think I'm better than anybody else, or I'm righteous about it. It's religion. I said, you feel more righteous than somebody that doesn't eat like you, don't you? Look, you eat anything you want, but if you feel more righteous than someone who doesn't eat like you, it is indeed a religion. Isn't that true? And so we can't be righteous by God's standards, so we make our own standard, and it's the one thing that we live up to. But maybe you just can't be righteous. How about this one, good looking? Sorry, guys. Eat your hearts out. But you know what the Bible says? The Bible says David was good looking. In the Bible, he was fair to look at. He was a good looking guy. You ever see him was just good looking? You know you can tell when they're good looking when you see somebody who's not good looking, okay? I was in Bible college my first year. You know, I'd been raised Roman Catholic. And being in Pensacola, we had a lot of sailors in the college. And one Wednesday night, one of the sailors came up to me and he said, I just led this 20-year-old wave. That was a female in the Navy. I just won this Catholic girl. She's 20 years old. She's a wave in the Navy. I just led her to the Lord. And I didn't know anything about the Catholic Church. You were Catholic, right? Yeah. He said, well, I'm going to bring her Saturday night to the Bible class. Could you talk to her? I said, sure. I thought, yeah, I'd be glad to talk to a 20-year-old girl. Of course, she could have beat me arm wrestling, okay? That was the problem. And look, I don't know how to say it. There's two ways to say that, take this word when you say this. She was stunning to look at. Now, stunning sometimes is wow, and sometimes stunning is like a blow to the head. And when I saw this girl, the first thing I did was check my watch to see if it had stopped or something. I mean, this was not a show. Well, she was a showstopper, yeah. And I think they sold her by the pound. But she loved the Lord. She just got saved, and she was so excited about the Lord. And I was telling her some stuff, you know, and I made the mistake of saying something. Well, I guess it wasn't a mistake. But I went back to my room, my house after class that night, and I said, man, God, I'm sure glad you want me to marry somebody who looks like that. And he said, what if I do? Now, do you understand the dangerous position you're in? If you say no, he's going to say, marry her. And if you say yes, he's going to say, marry her. And honest, this is what flipped the switch. I said, I didn't answer the question. I said this. I said, you know, Lord, I think it's time for me to put in an order for a wife. And I wanted somebody that was beautiful and was a good cook and took care of the house. That's what I wanted. You know, I got down on my knees, and I forgot to mention all of that. I got down on my knees that night, and I said this. I said, Lord, I want somebody who will understand that she is never going to be my first love, that you will be my first love. She'll be my second. But that she will accept that you are my first love. And I said, I want to marry somebody who I am not her first love. I want to be her second. And that's where I ended it. Now, two things came from that prayer. Number one, that girl that night fit that description. But so does that lady back there. And we met on church visitation. We both went to visitation and ended up getting put in the same car to go make some calls. And man, John Calvin took over from there, and here we are about to do 50 years. But you ever just see a guy that's good looking? You know, I mean, look, when your shoulders are rounded like this, it just doesn't do much for anybody. And you think, yeah, but my problem is I'm not good at music, and I can't preach, and I can't teach. I don't think I'm very smart. I'm not athletic. I'm not very righteous, and I'm not good looking. How about a great leader? There are people that are great leaders. There are people that are naturally great leaders. And there are some guys, I would not cross the street behind them. When I was pastoring in upstate New York, one of the guys that pastored in the area said, I'm going to have Alberto Rivera in my church. Alberto Rivera, some of you remember from the 70s, he was a converted Jesuit priest, and Jack Chick did a bunch of comic books about the corruption of the Catholic Church and the Jesuits. And this guy said, I'm going to have Alberto Rivera in. And he goes, would you like to have him in? I said, well, sure. Yeah, I'd have him in. So he was in 4 churches. He was in one like Saturday. I can't remember how the thing worked. Maybe one. We got him Saturday night and Sunday morning. And then Sunday afternoon, we were the second church to have him. And then Sunday afternoon, he went to another church and then to another. I think we were the third church, and he went to the 4th church. Well, the papers didn't know, Syracuse paper, they didn't know he was there until about the time we got him and shipped him off. And the next guy, I mean, it was horrible. They had reporters in the service standing up and taking pictures and trying to mess up the service. And then it was done, and he went. And so then we had breakfast, the preachers that had him in. And this guy that initially had him in, he was the first church that had him. And the sole reason he had him in was to have a problem in the community. And he was mad because it was the fourth church that they finally, he got to stand up and get the TV cameras and everything else, and he wanted that. And he goes like this, he goes, well, here's what we ought to do. I said, what? He said, I think we ought to have Alberto Rivera in our churches again. And I said, we just had him. Well, we just need to show these people that they can't tell us who we can and can't have in. I said, we just did, didn't we? And the guy just wanted to have him in solely to have a problem. And so he decided he's going to be the leader of this little group of pastors. And he goes, well, then what should I do? And I said, if I were you, I would go home and mow my grass. I said, that way your time wouldn't be wasted. But some people couldn't lead anybody anywhere. I don't know if you like to read. I like to read. There is a tremendous book. There are many books on this particular historic event. But the one I read was called Endurance, and it was when Ernest Shackleton took a ship down to the Antarctic, and he was going to find the South Pole, and he got locked. The ship got bound in ice. Eventually, it was crushed by the ice. The guys the crew lived on ice floes. Literally, they're floating across the Antarctic Ocean, and they're living on ice floes. And finally, they come up and they get on a place called Elephant Island, and all they had was one lifeboat. And they decided that I think 3 guys were going to get in that boat with what little food they had and try to make it back to civilization, because they were outside of any kind of a shipping lane. Nobody's going to find them here. And so the men, Shackleton said, I want you men to vote on who goes. And of the 3 men, the guy that got the most votes was Shackleton, the captain. And he thought they wanted to get rid of him. He says, what have I done? They said, no, sir. They says, there's not another man on this boat that we trust like we trust you. And if you're not going, nobody's going. The other 2 won't go. And so Shackleton went, and it is a phenomenal journey. I mean, they were 2 or 3 months. They land on, I think, Georgia Island. And at that time, it was an island. And on the map, you had like a contour map of like 5 miles from the beach, because everything on the interior, no man had ever walked on it. No man had ever been there. It's uncharted. And they took off. They landed on one side of the island and crossed this thing and got the men and got a ship. It was like over a year and a half before they got back. But here's the amazing thing. Not one man died. No one fought with each other. This is one of the most remarkable things about this, is that the crew, they were never at each other. They were never irate, and they just followed their captain. And somebody was commenting on that. Somebody that wasn't there, they were commenting on that. Why was that? And a guy said, if you want an explorer, you want Admiral Perry. And I can't remember, there was something else. If you want this, you want this guy. But he said, if you're in an emergency, you want Shackleton. And it was that leader's personality that had so permeated his crew that he literally brought, do you understand what a ship captain feels like after an experience like that? And he brings his whole crew home. Yeah, you need a Shackleton. And again, I mean, there's some guys, they couldn't find their way. I almost said out of a phone booth. Does anybody here know what a phone booth is? I have a pertinent question for the age. Where does Superman change clothes now? Which I don't know why I did it in a phone booth. I mean, it was glass anyway. But guys, maybe you say, well, I'm not a leader. I don't personally think much of me being a leader. I tend to stand out, and people think that's what I am. But boy, you ever see a leader, and you'd follow him to the end of the earth. So yeah, and there are going to be some great leaders. How about brave and strong? I'm not brave, I'm not strong. Next point. But really, in the Bible, is that not Samson? I don't know if you ever thought about this, but Samson, and people, they look at the downside of Samson, or they look at the upside about his strength, but you ever stop and think that this guy was this quick to be willing to put his life on the line? Think how many times he went to battle for Israel, and couldn't he have died every single time? Well, then it wasn't just his strength. The guy had to be brave, could he not? I mean, you can say what you want about how he lived, and you can say what you want about, well, it's, it wasn't natural strength. Well, the courage was natural. Because the guy was brave. You couldn't fight a cowardly bone in his body. And guys want to be strong and brave. And if you can't be strong and brave, guys, become a woman and swim. And they're just some things that, you're just not strong about, you're not brave about. I'll give you one, and you wouldn't think this one was tough. How about being helpful? If you can be a help to somebody, you're a blessing. I understand this desire to destroy. I learned a spiritual lesson before I got saved. It was 1968, 1969. And there were, if you were around then, there were a lot of riots going on and buildings being burned. Now, it was nothing compared to the Democratic riots of 2020. But I remember these hippies out in California were burning Bank of America buildings. For some reason, they were targeting Bank of America. I think they all had their accounts at another bank. And so these hippies burnt down this Bank of America building. And one of the hippies that set fire to the building got interviewed by the news media. Now, guys, do you understand this? When you set fire to somebody's building and you get interviewed instead of arrested, the country has already turned the wrong corner. So they're asking this hippie, how come you're burning these Bank of America buildings? And he said it so boldly, he says, we're going to build a new country, but we got to burn the old one down first. And I learned, I'm lost. I was a drunk Roman Catholic. But I learned something right there. You know what it is? Tell me if this isn't true. Any hippie can burn a building. There's not a lot of skill involved in setting a fire. Could I ask you people something? Have you ever seen a building that a hippie built? I think I saw one at a carnival once. But really, I've never seen a building that hippie built. If I did, I don't know if I'd go in it. And you know what I learned then? Now, honest, guys, I was a lost man, but here's what I decided that day. Anybody can burn a building. Not anybody can build one. You could take a 6-year-old kid and give him a book of matches, and he could turn this building or any building on this property into smoking ruins by this time tomorrow. Is that not true? A 6-year-old kid can do that. Could a 6-year-old build this building? And I decided back then, you're either going to be a destroyer or a builder. And I decided then I'm going to be a builder. Guys, when I stand before the Lord and he says, did you love me? I don't want my response to be, well, of course I loved you. How could you question my love for you? I split that church right there just for you. I got that preacher run out of town. I got those 2 preachers where they wouldn't fellowship anymore. Well, how could you doubt my love for you? Look at all the blood on my hands. Look at all the smoldering ruins behind me. That is how you manifest your love for God. I knew a pastor. He was very eccentric, very, very eccentric. And he started a church, but he was so eccentric that he had to leave. Not sin, no sin, but he just beyond the pale, okay? He'd let the neighbor's dog walk around in the church while they were preaching because it was like whatever was normal, he wanted to what was not going to do that, and whatever was abnormal, that's what was going to do. And finally, it just caught up with him. He got out, and he wrote me a letter, and we still correspond. And he wrote me a letter, and he mentioned of him being a failure. I said, brother, today, there is a church. Because of you, there is a church where there was not a church. That is not failure. Man, when you can start a church and leave, and there's a church still there, that is an amazing thing. Guys, why would you want to be a help? I want to say something. Pastor mentioned something this morning, and I would like to put in a plug, okay? Let me tell you what happened. We finished up in Wednesday in Santa Barbara. Santa Maria, down that Santa Barbara area, in Santa Maria, California. And Thursday and Friday we drove home. And Friday we drove home. And Saturday we went to Gipp. And Saturday we went to Gipp. And Sunday we went to Santa Barbara. And Sunday we went to Santa Maria. And Sunday we went to Santa Maria, California. And Thursday and Friday we drove home. That church gave us a $1,000 love offering. Wouldn't you like to have a check for $1,000? And it took $1,120 in gas to get us home. In other words, the love offering was gone in 2 days. That's not a night at a campground and eating for 2 days. And so I think I'm just going to put, those Biden stickers that says, I did that? I'm just going to forget the gas pump. I'm putting one on my wallet. And every time I say, yeah, he did this. And Pastor mentioned this morning about Sean Holes getting an RV, and he's going to be traveling with it. Now, guys, you want to be a help? You say, well, I'm praying for him. Well, praying's nice. I like praying. But help him. Because he is going from college campus to college campus. He's not going to be getting, I don't think, a whole lot of love. You say, well, somebody probably supports him. Guys, you have no idea what the cost is out there now. I mean, you go for 2 burgers and it's $30. I finally told Kathy, honey, you just can't keep eating 2 burgers every time. We've got to cut somewhere. Can I have one? But really, I know you're going to pray for him. But how is he going to pay for gas? And how is he going to pay for meals for his family? And I say, well, one of the best things you do when we have a missionary in here is give him a $50 Walmart card or a $50 gas card. Now, that's what you do if you want to help him in the ministry. If you want to help him and his wife personally, give him a restaurant card. You know why? Because you give the guy a card that's Walmart or gas, and he's going to use it for the ministry. Some years ago, there was a missionary came off a very tough field, and we were at a meeting, and it wasn't him that caught my attention. It was his wife. His wife had that 50-yard stare. I mean, she literally looked like she was in shell shock from the mission field that they were on. And they came home to give her some rest. And I won't tell you how much, but we gave him some money. And here's what I said. I said, take your wife away, and just the 2 of you get away. So he took that money, and the 2 of them went with a church on a mission trip to Mexico, which is, I don't know if you know that, that's not called getting away. And today he's not in the ministry, and she hates preachers. So if you want to help him in the ministry, when a missionary comes in, or you give him something like a gas card or a Walmart card. If you want to make sure him and his wife go out, because some of these guys never take their wives out, get him a restaurant card. I don't think he can turn that into gasoline. You can turn it into gas, but not into gasoline. And so, but really, guys, Sean Holes is tremendous. And not just what he does. I cannot believe it. You know why I don't do well with public ministry? Because every time somebody says something smart, I want to punch them. I want to fight. And can you imagine what Sean Holes, the abuse that he absorbs like a sponge and smiles? And that's not just it. Then he walks away having left something done for the Lord behind him. Is that not true? Now, honest, I could not in 1,000 years do the campus ministry he has. And if you're honest, probably nobody else in here could. So why don't you help somebody that does it? Be a help. Just this last one, and I'll give you my text. What about being special to God? Wouldn't it be nice to be special to God? So we're like, what do you mean special to God? Well, how about Zachariah and Elizabeth? God chose them to have John the Baptist. How about Mary? Don't you think she was kind of special? I'd say she was kind of special. How about a guy named Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 where he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make you famous. Isn't that true? I mean, we all know about Abraham. And who was he? He was a backwoods Syrian that God just tapped on the shoulder and said, I want you to get out of your country. I want you to go down here. I'm going to give you all the land you see, and I'm going to make you a blessing to the entire world. Right? Yeah, I'd like to be special to God. Well, I don't know how you can be special to God. I mean, really, you think maybe Abraham or maybe Zachariah and Elizabeth or maybe Mary, they should have wrote a book on how to be special to God? Well, how come some contemporary church has come up with that? Oh, because they're not special about anything. So imagine tonight, are you not going to stand in front of God sometime? It wouldn't be something if God said, I saw your game. Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, behind 2 runs. I saw you put it out in the parking lot. Man, wouldn't that be something? Evander Holyfield 4 times wins the heavyweight championship belt. He's saved. He's going to be in heaven. You think God's going to go, hey, could you sign my sleeve or something? I saw you when you TKO'd Tyson the first time and the second fight where he sucker munched you. But guys, is that what he's going to say? What about somebody that was a great teacher and you can't teach? What if a preacher and you can't preach? What about singers? Man, listen, if he's giving singing awards, a bunch of us are going to be left out of the sanctuary and out of the auditorium. Is that not true? We're just not even, they're not going to let us in. Like I said, you're going to be arrested for attempted music. What about all these things that you could do, even being helpful? So what's going to be the big deal to God? You know what I always say? I'm a car guy. I like cars. And I always say this, what turns your head? And if I'm walking across the parking lot and I hear a throaty V8 start up, that turns my head. I just got to see it. It was just a loud car. I just got to see it, okay? What do you think would turn God's head? With all of this, what do you think I would say? Now that's something. What if I told you this? There's only 2 things that so impress him. And it's 2 things that you can do if you can't sing, if you can't preach, if you can't teach, if you can't give, if you're not handsome, if you're not beautiful, if you're not smart. There are 2 things that are so important to him that he mentions it. Look at Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25. And look at verse 23. Talking about those servants in the parable of the talents, but he says this, his Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Wow. Some of you kind of think you're like a small timer, little leaguer, you don't count. Yeah, how can I count? Try being good. I didn't say righteous, I said good. You say, what do you mean? There's not one person in this room does not know what good is. You know how you know good? Because you know when you're doing bad. Wouldn't it be nice to be thought of as having been good? Imagine Jesus Christ. The Bible talks about if everything he did was written down, the world couldn't contain the books. So I think that in the Gospels, all those resurrections and healings, I think those must be like a 1,000th, maybe 1,000,000th of everything that he did when he was here. I've said it before. We think in city blocks, and if this pulpit is a city block, if Jesus Christ started here and walked down this street, by the time he got here, everybody in between who had been blind could see. Everybody who had been paralyzed could walk. Everybody who had been dumb could speak. Everybody who had been deaf could hear. Is that not true? Guys, is this not true? Jesus Christ ruined every funeral he attended because the body kept going home with its mother. Now, there is no grave for him. We've been to some people's graves, George Washington's, and there's some other people. Fanny Crosby. It's up in Stamford, Connecticut. It just has a little simple stone with her name on the front and on the back. No, it says, she had done what she could. That's all it said. But boy, that says a lot, doesn't it? We sang something by her this morning. We sang something by her tonight. But how would you describe the greatest man that ever walked the planet? The man who, when they tried to pay 2 guys, they could only get 2 guys that would volunteer to take the money to say something bad about him, and they couldn't get it right. They couldn't agree with each other. And if there were some kind of a memorial for him, if there were some kind of a place that, because there's no grave, the grave is empty. How would you describe somebody so good? Somebody who had done so much. Notice it says in Acts chapter 10, verse 38, Peter's talking about him, And he simplifies the entire life of Jesus Christ, 33 and a half years, of a man who never did anyone wrong. And it says, who went about doing good. Wow. I just say it this way. He went about doing good. You know what I recommend some Christians do? You know, you can pay for funerals now and pay for your plot, and you can pay for the stone. Some of you ought to go buy your gravestone, have it engraved. Unless you know Hillary, don't put the day you died. But you know what some of you ought to have put on your gravestone? He or she went about doing good. Put that on your gravestone. You say, why? Because when you die, nobody that knows you would ever put that on. You need to do that while you're alive. But this man, who never did anybody wrong, who raised people from the dead, who healed people, who brought families together, who never did anything wrong, and that the world couldn't even come up with an honest charge against him, he went about doing good. See, you say, I can't sing. Okay, you can't sing. You can do good, can't you? So how do I do good? Well, one way is just before you do bad, stop it. Tell me if this isn't true, Christian. Haven't you ever been talking to a Christian and they mentioned the name of another Christian who they think very highly of, and a little voice inside your head says, well, I'll see to it by the end of this conversation, they don't think as highly of them as they do now. Would you define that as good? I wouldn't define that as good. So just don't do it. Just don't do bad. Come on, you guys know bad. If you don't know good and bad, stay here until I get home, because I don't want you on the road with me when I'm driving. We all know good, and we all know when we're doing bad. Just don't do the bad and do good. And it says faithful. Can you think about it? He didn't say talented servant. He didn't say smart servant. He didn't say, yeah, good going, man. You played on our team. No. He said faithful. So what is faithful? Be here when the doors are open. You know, when you're a pastor, you see people get saved, and then you watch them grow. And, you know, I pastored for 5 years, and I watched some people got saved. There was a guy that got saved one day, and man, that guy just grew. He's still in church today and still serving God. But when you're an evangelist, you don't see that. You don't see people grow. You don't see people grow. You go to a church, especially, you know, I'd be there, and I'd be there 4 years later, and 4 years later, and 4 years later. You say, why every 4 years? Because it took me 4 years to get up 7 new sermons. But you know what always blessed me? I'd come here. I was just a couple of churches in California, and I walk in, and I see a guy that was there 4 years ago, and he was there 4 years before that. I walk in, and I see guys that have been there 12 years and 16 years, and they're just always there. Faithful. I'm going to say this, and I don't know why we get so upset about being called this. I don't think this is a bad thing. Well, he just takes me for granted. He just thinks I'm going to be here every time the doors are open. You take that as an insult. I think that's one of the greatest compliments you can have. In our church, I led this guy to the Lord. His name was Walt. Walt was like 100 feet tall. And our ceiling was not quite this high. And we had those brass chandeliers with the candle, like the flame light bulb. And Walt was tall enough he could stand on the back of the pew and change bulbs. Now, I can't. And somewhere along the line, Walt just took it upon himself to start changing light bulbs when he saw they were burnt out. You say, well, what's the big deal? Are you kidding me? Do you know what people do when they see a burnout bulb? Pastor, the light is burnt out. To which I always responded, the light is not all in this room that's burnt out. And the light can be fixed. Guys, I don't know, your pastor, he preaches, he teaches, he counsels with you. He's not the janitor. And Walt just thought he ought to change those bulbs. Now, I can still remember this. It was classic. I'm preaching Sunday morning, and I see over here, about 3 lights back, a burnout bulb. And I thought, I need to tell Walt that bulb needs changed. And I thought, no, I don't. He'll see it. And close the service in prayer after the 3-hour invitation. And we were out of the building, and I saw Walt stand on that back of the pew. Now, you ready for this? He not only, no one ever told him to do it, he bought the bulbs himself and didn't turn in the receipt. Maybe he really didn't get saved. I don't know. I had a guy in my church one time, he handed me a receipt for $1.25. He said, I bought something for the church. Put this in my giving. I said, I don't want it, and I threw it away. He says, aren't you going to put that in my giving record? I said, no. He said, why not? I said, why don't you give something once? But see, I took Walt for granted. Do you understand what a compliment that is? Do you understand what a compliment is if your pastor just says, man, it's an ugly day out there, but I know so-and-so will be here, and I know so-and-so will be here, and I know so-and-so will be here, and I know so-and-so. He said, oh, yeah, he takes it for granted. That's a compliment. You know what God calls it? Faithful. You couldn't hit a ground ball back to the pitcher's mound, but you can be in a seat every time the doors are open and the lights are on. You know, I had it so many times. The beginning of a meeting, and the pastor saying, I know they mean well, but I don't like to hear them say it. They'll say, this is the Sunday morning. This is the beginning of our meeting. Brother Gipp's going to be here till Wednesday. You guys, because he's here, you ought to be here every one of these services. I don't believe that. I do not believe people should come to the meeting because I'm there. I believe they should be there because their church, the doors are open, the lights are on, and they should just be there. Guys, so you're not good looking and you can't sing and you don't have a whole lot of talent. You're not very smart. But wouldn't it be nice if the Lord discounted all of that stuff anyway, and you get up there and think of all of the stuff that you just never could achieve for God? And he says, you are my good and faithful servant. And some guy that could hit a home run but could never make it to 3 services a week in church stands there still holding his trophy, waiting for the acknowledgement and waiting for the roar of the crowd, watching some guy with half a brain for being faithful to read his Bible, for being in church every time the doors are open, for never doing that bad thing that he wanted to do, and for doing everything that he could that was good. Guys, everybody in here, listen, you know what's good and you know what's bad. And you know what faithful is. Boy, if somebody was just, every time the doors are open. Let me ask you this. We talked, I'll get done. Talked about batting 300. I saw on the internet a picture of this, the trajectory of the baseball when Mickey Mantle hit the longest recorded home run, put it clear out of the park into the parking lot, hit a car. And you think, boy, that was really something. Mickey Mantle was a home run hitter. What if a guy never hit a home run, never hit a triple, never hit a double? I mean, that's the guys we talk about, the guy that's always the home run hitter. What did Babe Ruth do? One time he walks out there, pointed his bat to the left field fence and then just knocked it right out of there. Said, I'm not going to hit it. I'm going to hit it right out, right home run right over there. First pitch, boom, put it right where he said he was going to. What if you never hit a home run and you never hit a triple and you never hit a double, but every single time you went to bat, you got a single? That wouldn't be batting 300. Wouldn't that be batting 1,000? Oh yeah, you're not going to, knock it out of the park, and they're not going to talk to you about sports books, and they're not going to talk about the grand slam bringing in 4 runs. But sometimes a single brings somebody in from second. And I got news for you. If every single time you got up, if you were faithful to hit a single, you think your manager wouldn't know when to put you up in the lineup? So you're not the star, but you're faithful. And see, all of you can do that. Some of you can't sing. Some of you can't teach. Believe me, a lot of you are not good looking. But you can be faithful. You can be here every time the doors are open. And you can do good. And that is what that's what turns God's head. Could you imagine being some saved athlete's agent, talking to God about this guy's great ability sports-wise, or this guy's great intellect or great personality. And while he does it, in walks a little guy that's always been in church every time the doors were open, who never caused a problem, even when he wanted to, and always helped everybody that he could. And God just, all the time the guy's talking, God looks over and goes, now there's a star. Good and faithful servant. I'd like you to stand with your heads bowed. You know what I think our problem is? I think our problem sometimes is we're trying to be what doesn't count. We want to be a star, like I talked about in Daniel. We want to be a home run hitter. We want to be famous. We want to be accepted. We want to be excel above others. And all God wants you to do is do good and be faithful. Maybe tonight somebody needs to talk to the Lord and say, Lord, I don't know how much longer we got. I haven't been very faithful. But I will from now on. Maybe I'm talking to somebody and, come on, you know when you haven't been good. You know what you've done. Maybe tonight you say, God, I just want to be good. And I want to be faithful because I found out tonight that's what counts to you. That's what matters. Not the good looking. Not the helpful. Not the smart. Just be faithful. Just be good. Father, thank you for your goodness and your grace. God, I think there's some people here and they see some things in life, they see some things in Christianity that, like me, they're just not qualified for. They're not going to fit in. They don't have what it takes. I don't. But anybody here can be good because all they have to do is not be bad, and they know what bad is. And anybody here can be faithful. Anybody here could be here when the doors are open, the lights are on. God, if I pray for these people that if they can excel in some area for you, good. But for anybody here who thinks they're inferior, anybody who thinks that they're not up to the standard of other Christians, then help them just the rest of their lives to be good and to be faithful. I think that'll impress you when they get on the other side. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. What do you say?
Number 405, take my life and let it be.
Number 405, take my life, let it be. You want to talk to the Lord? This is the time.